This is Power Athlete Radio. With your hosts, Denny K, Professor Booty, and the Luke Summers. And now, toes forward, hips locked, shoulders set, and retract those scapulars. It's time for some knowledge bombs.
Thanks for tuning in to Power Athlete Radio. It's basically summertime, and unless you've been wodding shirtless all year like an elite boss, you've been, quote, focusing mostly on strength. Well, we know what that means. You've been eating like your plane was going down, and you know it. Leah Kay joins Tyler Minton and the crew to take some questions from the Power Athlete masses about nutrition. Questions like keto versus isocaloric, how to eat on $5 a day, and what to do about choosing the best supplements. How many tacos can you eat in one sitting? Luke claims he can throw back 30, while Tyler is betting a one taco lead at 31. Whether it's competing at the gym or at the dinner table, no power athlete likes to lose. This is episode 155.
Power Athlete Nation, what is up? You're tuning into the world's premier podcast in strength and conditioning. You got Luke here. I'm over in Chicago. I'm joining Tyler, who's out in Cali. Leah K, all day tuning in from Lululemon headquarters. I don't know.
No. Houston.
From Houston, we have a problem. And John, the man, the myth, the legend, Bill Brasky, Wellborn, can palm a medicine ball, chew on glass, spit bullets, Wellborn. What's up?
Well, I'd actually prefer Bill Bradley because Bill Bradley really is Bill Brasky, so I'll take anything. Hey, thanks for having me today, Luke. I always appreciate being invited on my own podcast.
Oh, you're welcome, John. Well, first question, tell us a little bit about yourself. I don't think anyone who listens to the podcast really knows anything about you because you don't ever speak up during these things.
It's true. I've actually went back and listened to the podcast, so I am going to just barely default to not saying much. So,
all right, we'll do this. Let's do this then. I mean, Leah, you haven't been on the show before, have you?
Nope.
Well, Leah, okay. So we got Leah and Tyler. Spoiler alert: this show is really going to be nutrition centric. So we're going to focus a lot on nutrition and answer some questions we're getting on Instagram. But Leah, give people the old 5-minute who is Leah K, how you found us, what have you been doing, what do you do, all that good stuff.
I do so many things. It's hard to keep them all straight. I've been actually in CrossFit for a number of years. I started at a gym in 2008 and started getting into different styles of programming. I also went to nursing school in the middle of all of that. So kind of connecting the fitness and wellness aspect of things, and found CrossFit football kind of like a lot of other CrossFitters did, just looking for workouts that I was good at because long cardio shit is not my bag. So found CrossFit football workouts and was like, I can do this. I can do this kind of stuff. And then I got really into the nutrition aspect of it, learning about, John's philosophy with everything and how he's been in with Rob Wolf and some of those other guys that I'd been studying. When I got out of nursing school, I went full-time at our gym and I started doing some nutrition work on the side. So now I do functional nutrition at a functional medicine clinic in Houston, and then I still coach and compete. Didn't make it to regionals this year, but boohoo. But that's kind of what I've been up to lately.
Awesome. Well, I mean, I guess to give a little more background on the nutrition gig is John and I have mostly John, I'll give credit where credit's due, obviously, because if I even remotely put an I in there, you'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? But John's wanted to get this nutrition service and team up and running, and it's just like we've been so focused on just programming that as soon as, we've had a previous episode with Tyler, and Tyler's also on the line. If you guys haven't listened to his podcast, it's killer. But it was just all kind of right place, right time. And we knew that you two were the definite solution to staffing up a nutrition service. So that's up and running now. And we get tons and tons of questions over email, the forums, and our Facebook group as well. So I figured, why not just make a podcast out of it? Right?
Sounds like a plan.
All right. So I guess with that said, let's just jump right into the first question that's out there. Okay. Would you recommend, oh, here we go, John. Would you, unfortunately, you're going to have to talk. Would you recommend a ketogenic diet for quote unquote tactical athletes? Or would you recommend a more straightforward, balanced protein, fat, carb, like our isocaloric approach? And I guess, John, go.
All right. I would recommend a isocaloric diet. And I really start everybody on an isocaloric diet just because it's a very simple, easy baseline to get people just accustomed to, actually figuring out what they're putting in their body. And I think the problem with a lot of this stuff is everybody's so focused on macros, and they assume that there's some magic ratio of macros that is going to help them meet their goals. And at the end of the day, macros don't trump food quality. I don't give a shit who you are or what you claim. I'll fight you to the death on this one. So really what we did with the ketogenic diet, and I'd followed a ketogenic diet, years ago, or starting years ago with Dr. Deepa Squall, really cycling in carbs as needed. And it worked great for body composition. And, in the off season, I could put on muscle. I could, really kind of tweak it and, figure out which works best for me. But the minute that I got into the season, I went back to a very balanced isocaloric diet and would eat carbs based on, what I needed. If I was feeling tired, I'd probably eat more carbs. If I was losing weight on the scale, I added more fat, more protein, and more total calories back in. It's not fucking rocket science. If you're, out, training, a couple of hours a day, banging weights, doing all these things, you're probably going to need more calories. And I really just wouldn't get wrapped around the axle with macros. And I think people really forget, what they need. So if you're a tactical athlete, and I don't necessarily know what type of tactical athlete you are, but having worked with the guys from Naval Special Warfare and worked with SEALs for years, my biggest thing was, putting those guys in a diet that allowed them to eat real foods. I mean, the biggest complaint I heard was a lot of guys going on the road and, eating out of convenience stores and what's convenient, what's easy. And, on the road, I can't do this. And it's a fucking cop-out. There's a grocery store you can go out and you can actually get real foods. And then just kind of understanding, how much they need to consume, based on some very simple measurements. So would I recommend a ketogenic diet for a tactical athlete? That all depends on what kind of tactical athlete that you are. If you are an operator in the military or doing something, then, where are you within your training cycle? Are you in a workup? Are you on deployment? Are you on, just training different training ops? And, my biggest thing is, why are you interested in a ketogenic diet? Is it something where you've had, concussions from, explosives, and you have, some TBI, or you might have some issues with, brain for whatever reasons, and you're looking at kind of a ketogenic approach, just trying to manage those. And if that's the case, and you're looking at it in terms of a health and wellness type of deal, then maybe a pure ketogenic diet might be a benefit. But I think for somebody that's looking to ramp up performance, I don't necessarily know for that, endurance, glycolytic kind of multidiscipline type athlete that might have to do a lot of different things. I wouldn't really get too wrapped around the axle on going to the extremes of, carbohydrates versus anything. So short answer, follow the isocaloric, and then eat as you need based on your performance and your body weight and how you're feeling. Don't fucking be weird, and don't be a supermodel and try to starve yourself and do a bunch of crazy shit because you think that's what's going to help you. So fucking eat real foods.
So John, I guess like in terms of a proverbial in season, there's really no place for it. But if as things settle down, or maybe go on leave or extended leave for whatever reason, and you're trying to, fix some sort of cognitive or TBI type issue, that's where a keto approach might be more appropriate.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I found really good benefit in doing carb cycling, like within the approach we put in the ketogenic diet or ketogenic protocol. And it's really because I have really good sensitivity to carbohydrates. That means I react really well to them. So, but I also don't feel like shit on a ketogenic diet. Like, I don't have to eat carb, and I fucking feel fine. Like, it's not like something, and I always wonder if, hormonally or maybe, genetically or something, I'm different, because I hear a lot of guys just like, going on and on as if, their whole fucking life has been sucked out of them because they have carbohydrates, because they don't have carbs. Frankly, I don't fucking care. Like, I can't think of a day where I've been woken up and been like, oh my God, my whole life's going to end. I haven't had carbs. And I just hear the fucking drama people go through. And either I'm not wired like that, or I just don't give a fuck. Like, I'm going to get up, I'm going to do what I do, and it's not the problem. And then, after, when I get to the carb refeed, and I'd sit down and eat pancakes and syrup and for that first meal after I trained. And dude, I would sit there and I would sweat so bad that my wife would be like, dude, this is getting weird. Like, and that's part of the deal. You just, it's working about those big flips and, but I think if you're a person that, tries keto, and we, I get emails, and I'm sure if I click on my phone, there's going to be numerous questions talking about a ketogenic diet, how bad people feel. And I'm like, dude, I don't always kind of figure that out a little bit, but, at the end of the day, nutrition is about fueling your body for performance. And if you're ever in a situation where, I feel like fucking shit, my whole world's coming to an end, and you're, not in a situation like, hey, I got to step on stage in a skimpy pair of underwear to, pose in a bodybuilding contest and trying to get down to really low single digit fat. Yeah, you're probably not going to feel well. You're going to have to fucking starve off some water. You're going to have to die. You're going to have to do all these things. But if you're talking about a healthy athlete based on performance, whose goal is to go out and kick ass, then you know what? Like, then what are you worried about a few ounces of body fat? Like, probably a little bit more body fat would be helpful. So, if you're, I guarantee I run into it all the time. People are like, oh, I feel like shit in the ketogenic diet. Well, it's great. Then you know what? If you feel like shit, then probably that isn't the best approach from you. For me, when I do it, I don't feel bad. I actually feel really good. And, it works for me, but, everybody's genetically and hormonally a little bit different. So, and also, dude, I'm not out fucking running, mile after mile. I mean, our stuff is bang heavyweight, short, quick and hard. And so the demands of what I'm doing, are a little bit different than, a tactical athlete's kind of a broad and general, moniker. But, if you, based on the guys that I've worked with who could be doing anything from like sprinting 50 yards with, something heavy to, having to hike 10 clicks at 12,000 feet. I mean, what I'm looking to do is really just kind of balance their diet and be able to provide them different macros or different macronutrient ratios based off of what allows them to do their job the best. So that's the short. So does that answer it?
Yeah, definitely. Tyler, got anything?
Yeah. And for me, I did a keto diet for a while. And really the biggest thing I had personally, I had really hard time sleeping. Like I kind of became an insomniac when I was on it. But there was things that, that I'm it's something I'm wanting to revisit personally, just and tweak it a little bit, but like with the carb refeeds and stuff to try to actually like see, how I can get that out. So it's something that I want to continue to tweak and work on with myself because, I have personally had some brain injuries and things like that. So for those properties, I love it. As far as like the tactical athlete, I mean, I'm with John, and I really think the isocaloric is the way to go. For one, I've been on bases. I've been to the DFACs. I went to Afghanistan and Kuwait over Christmas and stuff to do some seminars and such. And it is so stupid easy to eat the way that we recommend people eat if you're on base. It blew my mind how perfect it is. I mean, all the places there, they might have like a Taco Tuesday or pizza or something, but they always have like rice. They always have chicken. They always have fats. I mean, so an isocaloric diet is it's so much easier to maintain. If you travel a lot, isocaloric is so easy to do. I stick with an isocaloric just because I travel a lot. So it's really, really easy for me. So I think for the tactical athlete, if you're someone just training like a tactical athlete, You might be able to fudge around with it a little bit, but for the person who's, a legit real world tactical athlete, like doing real stuff like that, I think an isocaloric approach to this is just, again, for one thing, I think it's super simple, and I think it's going to keep you, glycolytic and keep your energy up all day, which most of these people, they don't need it. They don't, it's hard to carb cycle because, if I front load all my carbs at breakfast because I'm going to work out, but what happens if, it hits the fan in the evening? You never really know. So I think that isocaloric approach is a lot better for people who just at any moment might have to get up and go and, do God's work.
Nice. I think we stomped it. All right. Next one. Meal frequency. Are more frequent meals, let's say 6 to 8, superior to less frequent, let's say 3 to 4 meals per day? Assuming that the same daily macros hit are in each scenario. This is my boy Daztronic. Daztronic's dropping it.
This is kind of a age-old debate. I mean, this might be as old as like free weights versus machines. I mean, this might be as fucking old as like, cardio versus weights. I mean, the meal frequency thing. Personally, I think anybody who is trying to get 6 to 8 meals a day is either fucking unemployed or, must have no job and they're independently rich. I mean, think about this. If the average person sleeps hopefully 7-8 hours a day, which is roughly means that you have 16 hours available to you, and I'd assume, at least an hour of that is involved in, being in a car, taking a shower, getting dressed. So, I mean, like you figure like, let's push it all in. So you have roughly 15 hours. So now if you were to try to eat 8 meals a day, that means you are roughly eating every hour and 40 minutes or something, which to me is next to impossible to do.
But what if it was superior, John?
It's not. There's no way, and I'll tell you why. I think it is not a bad thing to be hungry. And I think that's part of the problem we've run into in this country with just a lot of things. I remember there was old Russians, and I remember, and I can't remember where I heard this, but it was a statement that somebody made about the Russians make about Americans, that in Russia you eat one bite hungry, opposed to America where they always eat one bite full. And like, there's nothing wrong with being a little bit of hunger. Like that's good. I think that's part of our system within our bodies. The idea that, feast and famine, that you should eat and then you should feel hungry. Like there's people that I'm sure in this world have never felt hunger. And I don't think that's a fucking good thing. That if you're constantly titrating fucking nutrients in the system, the stomach is always full. I just don't think that's of benefit. Now, let me preface it. If your goal, and you are a professional bodybuilder and you are on a, fucking gram of test a day, and you're taking, 25 different drugs, you're stacking on top, and you have this insane ability to metabolize protein and calories based off of a extremely science project type fucking approach. Can you utilize that many calories in that, and you're in this constant state of growth and this? Yeah, I think it makes some sense. But I think anything really past 4 or 5 meals gets to be, a little bit crazy. I mean, my son, who is 7 weeks old, eats every 3 hours. And he's hungry every 3 hours. He's also 14 pounds and has a stomach the size of maybe a plum. So like he eats 4 or 5 ounces of breast milk, and that's what he has. And then he sleeps, and that's a baby. And I watch him, and all that kid does is eat and sleep, and he grows, and that's fine. But I think once you get to a point, I mean, for me personally, 3 or 4 meals is more than enough to get me through the day. I mean, I eat enough at each meal that, I should be able to go 3 or 4 hours in between each meal. I definitely have played around with some fasting, and actually I kind of like a little bit of fasting. I think there's some really interesting stuff. I mean, there's a real interesting podcast with Ken Ford, where and I can't remember the guy they brought in, but he was expert on fasting, talking about, that our bodies, in terms of evolutionary, that we were kind of based on this feast and famine deal, and that a lot of the problems that we're seeing today could be attributed back to this idea that we've been sold on this myth that you have to be constantly feeding yourself. And he made a point that we're not fucking cows. We're not designed to graze. We are 100%, based on this idea of, eat and then kind of move along. So personally, and I've done bodybuilding diets. I had, when I was playing the NFL, I had, these people designing meals and doing all this shit. And like, they had 6-7 meals a day. And I remember thinking, I'm so fucking tired of eating and doing this. I just started opening the containers and smashing the meals into 3 or 4 containers just because I got tired of fucking shoveling food in my mouth. So do I think it's a benefit? I really don't. I don't really see, and I'm sure there are people that are arguing, and like, where's the scientific data on this? That's my favorite, when people ask for like peer-reviewed information on the efficacy of eating 6 to 8 meals versus 3 to 4. And I'm sure it's fucking out there, but I haven't seen it. But I'm just telling you, from my own personal, 3 to 4 meals is more than enough. And I don't think it's a problem to actually feel hunger. Now when you're
I know you want to chime in, but I have a real question. So what about 5 meals? Does 5 meals just not fucking work? So it's either 6 to 8 or 3 to 4? I've been doing it wrong, dude. I've been doing 5.
Yeah, no, I mean, dude, they're like there's some interesting stuff. Like they've actually gone back and looked at people that have, consistently eaten 2 meals. And the idea is, it's tough. Like, I did a blog post on, somebody asked about, the ultimate fucking secret squirrel, which was like CrossFit football with mixed CrossFit endurance and like all this fucking shit, and why you're following a lean gains approach. And I actually wrote a blog post called CrossFit Football and Lean Gains. And really what fasting is you set up a window of feeding, and it helps you, a fancy way to do caloric restriction, because there's no way you can eat as many calories in 8 hours as what you can eat in 16. So, I just think, is there more benefit for digestion? I mean, the other thing you got to realize is how most of the people listening to this, and most people out there, at least I think, are somewhere in the neighborhood of about 170 to about 210 pounds. So, I mean, realistically, if they're eating 15 calories per pound of body weight, they're eating somewhere around 3,000, 3,200 calories, maybe 2,800, somewhere in there. You break that up into like 4 meals, and it's going to be about 4, let's say 800 calorie meals, or 4, 600 calorie meals with a snack, somewhere in there. That's not a fucking terrible amount of food. The problem is when you see a lot of these 6 to 8 meals, you're talking about 300-pound guys or 300-pound bodybuilders that are consuming 6 or 7 or 8,000 calories a day. I know when I was playing, I was eating 6 to 7,000 calories a day, and my 6 meals were 6 1,000 calorie meals. Now, that's a ton of food.
Yeah. But, so what it's worth, if you click through to my boy Daz Tronic, he's a power lifter. He seems to be a beefy cat. Like he may fall under that 300 plus pound category, or maybe he's totally flattered by this, but I don't have a lot to go by.
Well, if I click through and he was a 300 pound dude and he's like, yo man, I got to eat 5,000-6,000 calories, and there's no way I can eat, 2,000 calories at each meal. Then I would be like, all right, well, like at the end of the day, if you're going to meet your macros, but his, and it might be fucking stomach distension. Like for me personally, I hate the feeling of fucking being stuffed. Like I hate sitting there like overeating, and Luke and I know this, is that we've sat down and all of a sudden our eyes are bigger than our stomachs, and then we, have ego, and also the growing up with like, eat what you want, or take what you want, but eat what you take kind of mentality. We sit down, we're like, that's a lot of food, and like we're gonna have to eat it all, and then all of a sudden you're sitting there, your stomach's distended, you're like, fuck, why'd I eat this much? And like, to me, I don't sleep well, I don't train well, I don't fucking work well, I just don't do well when I'm fucking overstuffed. So for me, I always, and if his idea is like, hey, I want to eat a series of small meals that allow me feel sick, it just, I rather play with the feeding times a little bit, but I just have never seen people, really make that big a difference. Like I've never seen anybody that was like, I'm eating 3,000 calories and I eat it in 3 meals. And then all of a sudden I went from like 3,000 calories to 6 meals and I started eating 6 500 calorie meals and I was eating every 90 minutes in this. I really haven't seen a huge change within body comp and performance. Not to say that it wasn't there, but when I do, it usually becomes a bunch of other shit fucking picks up because nobody does anything that exists in a vacuum. All of a sudden it's like, no, I'm going to change my meals up. And now all of a sudden I'm getting up early and I'm walking the dog. I'm doing a little bit of aerobic work. I'm going to bed earlier. All of a sudden now I'm training a little bit harder. So the problem is that when people all of a sudden start making these like big changes, it usually comes on the heels of a bunch of other things. So it's just very hard to know. So personally, I just haven't seen a big difference. And 2, I just hate the idea of having to eat every fucking 90 minutes.
Well, I mean, a big thing that people are missing with the eating, 6 to 8 times a day is that like you were saying before, the body wasn't designed to graze, and you have to, if you're digesting, the body is focusing a lot of energy on the actual digestion process, and then it can't do other shit. So one of the reasons why fasting actually can be beneficial for some people is that the cells have a chance to actually like clean themselves up, and you get controlled cellular death, apoptosis with cells that have some shit fucked up with them. It kind of cleans up the garbage, so to speak. So if you're constantly eating, then your body doesn't ever have a chance to do that really, except at night. And you got a whole lot of shit that the body has to do at night. So having the meals spaced out more in like a 3 to 4 ratio. I can't eat 3 meals a day. 3 meals a day, like I have to at least have 4 because of timing and when I'm awake, like the hours I'm awake. But, more than that, and you just find yourself like you're just constantly digesting. And then another thing that I kind of find with people, clients that I talk to, people who are eating 6 to 8 times a day, a lot of times the people who are interested in that seem to be interested in like weight loss and like, it's kind of a bodybuilding style diet or whatever. But the problem is that they're so out of touch with their body's own like hunger and full signals that those 6 to 8 meals that are supposed to be 250 to 300 calories, depending on how big you are. If it's especially for like women, they're not eating that. They're eating normal size meals, and now they're eating 6 or 8 of them instead of 3. So then their calorie count ends up being way higher, unless they're really, really being specific about measuring and weighing everything. So,
I think this too, people will always eat, I think, to the point of being satiated, and then like people have to understand what that is. I mean, like, the idea of, was that meal sufficient to fuel me for the next endeavor? And I think like we have this idea, and I think people's perception, and whether it's, leptin production or adrenaline or whatever it is, I think people, and this is something I was actually reading about recently, is that, as people gain body fat, they start becoming more insensitive to, or the fat becomes more insensitive to different hormones. And so
leptin resistance.
Yeah. It becomes, so now all of a sudden the same signals that you would have had in the past when you were leaner, all of a sudden are quicker and more efficient. Whereas now you have body fat. I mean, the human body's pretty smart. Like, the analogy I heard recently is if you look at the human body a lot like a bank account, if you make $100,000 and you spend $100,000  1 year, and then all of a sudden in the second year you make $25,000, can you still live as if you made $100,000? No, you have to, you might have gone on vacations, you might have had a better car, you traveled, you went out, you had a good time. You all of a sudden cut that in fourth, and what does it do? It doesn't mean you can't still live like that. It means you probably don't get to go out. You probably don't have the same car. You might not live in the same place. Your lifestyle effectively slows down. Well, the body does that too. It's not, people have this idea that all of a sudden, hey, I've been eating this way, now I'm going to cut calories, and magically my body is going to all of a sudden continue to burn at the same rate. And I don't think it works like that. I think all of a sudden you start cutting calories and the body stops working as efficiently. And so that's why when, we do the protocols and work with people, the last thing I ever do is really yank calories. If anything, I'd rather turn up the intensity of the workout and try to burn the candle at that end. And, and then, you look at different people, and the first thing they want to do, you look at different diet protocols, first thing they want to do is yank fat out of the diet. And I'm like, dude, if anything, why do you always want to beat up on the fat and this? I mean, so it just doesn't make sense to me, and I figure out like, hey, let's figure out what your BMR is. Let's figure out how many calories you're burning. Let's figure out what's efficient to kind of stabilize. And then, let's turn it up on the other side. And, like, hey, if you got to get up in the morning and go walk the dog for 30 minutes or do some aerobic work, and you got to train a little bit harder, if you got to cut your rest periods down to, from 3 to 5 minutes down to 90 seconds or 2 minutes to try to push the conditioning, I'd much rather do that than all of a sudden be like, yeah, I've yanked out fucking 1,500 calories of your diet trying to get you to lose some pounds, because all it does is effectively fucking reduce your available income in the bank account. So, it's just different approaches to things. And, the one thing I'm just really, really fascinated by is people's perception of food and perception of diet is kind of sometimes skewed. And I wonder if sometimes some of these things are people's perceptions of when they're full. Because, we'll go out and eat, and I'm always amazed at, fucking people sit down and just crush some food. And then you sit down with other people that are, fairly thin and like, oh, they eat, and they're like, yeah, I don't really overeat that much. So I don't know. It's just, I know my brother Ed, when he dieted down from he was like 230, he dieted down to just over 200. He might be 205, 208. I asked him, I was like, what'd you do? He's like, I just started eating less at every meal. He's like, I would just cut it in half and take half home immediately, just get a to-go box, cut it in half. He goes, I just started eating less at every meal. And, I just started skipping breakfast. And he goes, I would just miss a meal here and there and just started eating less. And he lost weight. And he's like, it really wasn't all that complicated. But he goes, I almost had to train my brain to not overeat at every meal and to try to teach myself again what it meant to be full, because I don't think I had a perception of full. And I was like, fuck, that was really insightful. That was good information.
Yeah, so, the thing that I end up telling a lot of people, just to be really quick, was just eat however many meals you need to do to hit the amount of macros you need to do, and still, go with our timing of those macros. So, we don't want anything to if your diet stresses you out, if eating 6 times a day stresses you out, you're doing it wrong, because we're trying to limit all this stress anyway. You shouldn't stress, having to eat shouldn't be stressful. And another thing, like I say to my fighters, is a hungry dog fights harder. And it's true. It's something that I noticed, and my fighters have noticed, that if we eat too much on the day of a fight or something like that, you don't fight as hard.
Tyler,
if you're a little hungry, and it's fight or flight syndrome.
Tyler, I couldn't agree with you more. And I played every NFL game of my life hungry. I would, we would play at noon or 1 o'clock. I'd get up early and I'd go down and I'd have a little bit of chicken, maybe a little bit of fruit, just a little tiny bit, and wouldn't eat. And then, and I played with all these guys who would go crush this big breakfast, and they would bring food with them. They'd be eating. And they always ask me, and I'm like, dude, the last thing I want to do is fucking be full or feel sluggish at all from digestion. I don't want any food in my stomach. I want to just fucking ramp it up and survive on that little bit of hunger. And for me personally, man, that was night and day difference. I just was never one of those guys that could play full.
Yeah, so it's what else? Go ahead. I'll say, what do I say? Do you want your metabolism digesting food, or do you want your metabolism looking for food? When it comes time to fight, man, you got to go kill that saber tooth. A full body's not really looking for food. So,
isn't insulin and cortisol also antagonists? So if you want to have a little, you want cortisol in the system whenever you're in that situation.
Insulin and cortisol and testosterone. Insulin is, when blood sugar goes up and you have constant inflammation, cortisol gets released in response to blood sugar. So, think about fight or flight. All of a sudden, somebody goes through a stress hormone, like that type of situation. Cortisol gets released, and then blood sugar goes up, and then insulin gets released in response. Cortisol or insulin and testosterone and cortisol fight for the same plane. So if cortisol is always high, it usually will prevent testosterone from being effective. So, but you take a look we had on the nutrition deal. The guy asked the question about why on the ketogenic diet was my blood sugar high first thing in the morning. And I love how everybody relates it just back to the pure diet. But, my first question is, what does your sleep look like? Because for me personally, my blood sugar is always high in the morning. Then as soon as I eat, it goes down to like 80. And the first thing the doctor asks is, how was your sleep? And I was like, well, I think it's okay. And, then, realized that probably for some reason my sleep was interrupted. And, it could be the fact that I got kids walking in, I got a baby crying, I got all these things, but your sleep ends up getting, hindered. And if you don't get good sleep and you have, stress from not sleeping, then that can definitely result in elevated cortisol, more stress hormone, which could release blood sugar, and then I could have high blood sugar in the morning. So, and then funny enough, as soon as I eat, that thing goes right down. And I tested my blood sugar pretty religiously, and that was what they found. The only time that my blood sugar was high was first thing in the morning. And so, what did the doctor do? He prescribed me CPAP, and so now I sleep with an air machine that pumps air into my nose, and really went back and had to look at like what was most important. And for me, it was actually sleeping on my side in a position where my airway was most open, and really just having to do research on how to efficiently sleep more. And when I felt like I was getting it, we had a baby, and now my sleep has been dog shit for the last 7 weeks.
Well, I think we've smashed this question, but sorry, go ahead and finish up, John.
I was telling you, my kid has, he is the loudest, bodily functions. Like, I'm sleeping and I hear that kid, like, dude, he goes number 2, and it is so loud. He's like farting up a storm. And like my funny part, last night, my wife like tapped me. She's like, did you hear him go poop? I'm like, yeah, I think everybody heard him go poop. That kid is pretty explosive. So
he's already got those talents that early on, huh?
Well, we had an interesting deal in that when he was born, when he came out of the hospital, his belly button got infected, because there's like a little deal where it's kind of fascinating that, the umbilical cord kind of connects to the urinary tract and urethra, and and then it dissolves and they get there. I mean, there was kind of a little bit of it and I forgot the exact term, but it hadn't really dissolved all the way. It disappeared. And so there's kind of like a little area down there, and ended up getting infected. And so when his belly button fell off, his belly button got infected. So they had to take him in and, took him to chalk, and he had to get some antibiotics on it. And, for a 10-week-old or 10-day-old baby, you start giving them antibiotics, it kind of fucks up their, gut biota and kills off the good and the bad. So we started dosing him with probiotics to try to help it. And it's been like the fight between, the Alliance and Darth Vader. I mean, dude, it's like, belly feels good, feels bad. I mean, just, trying to go back and reline and rebuild that gut flora has been pretty much what we've been working on for the last 7 weeks. So I wonder if part of that has to do with his extremely loud flatulence. So hopefully he'll get better. Hopefully he's not farting up a storm when he's a little kid.
That's not what I hope he does.
Oh.
All right, so let's move on here. We'll go up with my man Jake. He says, hey, John and team. Been following the If It Fits Your Macros protocol. That's not one of ours, for the record. 20% carbs, 40% fat, 40% protein in a weight loss attempt. All right. Basically, glory days are behind him. I hear this, dude. So it's time to get in shape. Current numbers, 6'3", 292, maybe 30% body fat, 29% body fat. That was 5 years ago. Or no, was previous. And then 5 years ago, he was like 270 at 20% body fat. Long story short, okay, he's looking to lower body fat and body weight and maintain performance and lean muscle while cutting weight and fat, and is curious if the macro timing of If It Fits Your Macros will be the solution to this, as well as maybe paying more attention to strength work rather than the WOD on CrossFit football. So he looks like a CrossFit football follower.
No.
Yeah.
Here's the thing with If It Fits Your Macros. That like the it word there can be the make or break for that. So I tell people all the time, like, there's a difference in what 40 grams of gummy bears and 40 grams of sweet potatoes. Yeah, one of them tastes better than the other. But the fact of the matter is, man, it's just – now, do the macros matter? Well, yeah, of course. Like, you need to know how many macros you're eating at each meal. But this whole concept that if you can – food quality isn't as important as the fact that we just hit that amount of macros, that is so stupid. Like it doesn't. I hate referring to the body as a card, but that's like putting unleaded in something that needs premium. It's so stupid. Like I cannot stand it.
Yeah, no, I mean, okay, so let's define. Okay, technically a calorie is a calorie, because the way they figure out a calorie is they burn something and they see at which the rate at which it burns and how much heat it gives off, and technically that's how they define a calorie of a certain deal. They're like, okay, there's X amount of calories in this. That's how they find it. But each calorie, or more importantly, each food or each substance, whatever you put in your body, is going to have a different response. And being like, a sugar is a sugar. I mean, it's just not the case. Like, and I think, if it fits your macros, works really well for people that are already pretty lean. I've seen guys over 3% body fat that ate nothing but chicken McNuggets. So the problem I have with it fits your macros is it's kind of like, we're offering your cake and eating it too. And unfortunately, I have never seen two exact macronutrient plans, one done with terrible food quality and one that's done with good food quality, actually come out with even responses. And my only comment is if you can show me a healthy profile, somebody that's in good shape, and let me design if it fits your macros, I would love to do it, because I'm going to give you vegetable oil for a fat, I'm going to give you gluten for protein, and I'm going to give you high fructose corn syrup for a carbohydrate. And if you can fit those three into if it fit your macros and worry about nutrient timing and this and all that, I guarantee you're not healthy and you're not in good shape. It's just not the case.
And I think what we could do to refer this and just move on to some other questions, because this was talked about ad nauseum with Dr. Warren Wiley when he was on the podcast. So if you just go on to Power Athlete HQ, search up Warren Wiley, and he'll pop up. And to give you a brief synopsis is like, for a lot of the hard charging people that are promoting it and getting good aesthetic results, he's like, if I were to pop open the hood and take their blood, it's going to look like dog shit compared to somebody who may have a worse body comp, but has been following a more balanced diet based off of food quality. Right. And it's just like, you'll get there maybe quicker because you allow yourself to starve yourself with the little rewards, but it's just, long story short is there's no longevity to it, right?
Well, the other one is I follow Lane Norton on Instagram, and he posted up a picture, and it was him at I used to live in Tampa, and he was at a burger joint in Tampa, and he's holding up this pretty awesome looking burger and fries, and he was like, if it fits your macros, and I was laughing and being like, I didn't know a burger and some sweet potato fries was on the other side if it fits your macros. I figured that was pretty good food quality. And I kind of laughed a little bit, and then I realized that probably some of the backlash he runs into, or they're talking about, is the bodybuilding community that believes that, a diet of brown rice and fucking boiled chicken is the only way you get in shape. And I think if it fits your macros kind of goes back to that kind of fighting against that a little bit. The idea that it's, steamed broccoli, boiled chicken, and brown rice is the only way you can lean out. So it goes, but the problem is that, people see if it fits your macros and like, well, hey, I need 50 grams of sugar right here, so I'm going to eat, half a pound of gummy bears, and then I'm going to get, I need to get some protein. Great, so I'm going to go over and, wow, let's figure out here. Oh, wait, hold on, this fucking muscle milk right here has got 9 grams of protein, but it also has 40 grams of sugar. But you know what? I'm not going to worry about that sugar. So I just don't buy into it. I'm sure there's people out there. I mean, there's probably entire forums in the bodybuilding.com fucking era that, are dedicated if it fits your macros. And I posted stuff on, food quality trumps everything else. And, I always get people being like, oh, it's not true, it doesn't matter. And being like, dude, just because you don't agree with it, or you don't, it doesn't make it true, or if it doesn't fit your personal agenda, it just isn't true. And I just don't think that, we're in a situation today where people can honestly look you in the face and say, food quality does not matter. If that was the case, and I always think about this too, if calorie balance was the only thing we had to worry about and food quality didn't matter, how come as Luke and I drive to work every day, there's a homeless dude that sits on the corner of on 17th, and we drive by him, and he's mentally insane, but he's also about 500 pounds. Would you say, Luke, 450, 500 pounds?
Easy. Easy. You know what? But people are probably I don't care. I'll tell you what I call him. I call him the walrus. He looks like a fucking walrus out there. And he's got this amazing tan because he just sleeps with his shirt off all day in the grass. Like, on the big.
But have you ever seen people bring him fast food all the time? And I sit there and I watch him eat, and like, dude, I've seen people drop off and bring him fast food, and he eats out of the trash can because he's right near a 7-Eleven. And like, I literally have seen the guy sit down with, like, people will always, it's Newport Beach. People see it and like, oh, it's unfortunate. And the guy is mentally handicapped. I mean, I've sat at the stoplight and listened to him have some pretty irate conversations with himself. And I watch people bring him food all the time. And I always think, like, if it was purely on calorie balance, then, like, this guy's obviously homeless. I mean, he doesn't have a kitchen. Like, he doesn't have refrigeration. He has no access. I'm sure there's days he doesn't eat, but like, how is he that heavy? And, that was kind of one of the points. And I actually researched a little bit, and it's this deal where, people that tend to eat the worst kinds of foods, have the bigger problems. And I really believe that obesity is much more of a hormonal issue than it is a calorie balance issue. Because if it was all this, dude, think about it. This country, when you go to a doctor and if you're overweight, what do they tell you? Eat less and move more. And I always trip out on that because most of the doctors are fat. That's another one I love. It's like we went to the doctor and the guy's like, oh, eat more, move less. And I'm like, well, what do? Do you eat, like, you're not in good shape. And so I always think, like, if it was that simple, then, we either have a nation of some really lazy fucking people that can't count any calories, or it has to be something bigger than that. And, and I really believe that, obesity, we get into it when you look at, like, type or, stage 1 type obesity, which would be a BMI, as the way they define it, over 30, which is ironic, seeing as my BMI is like 30 or 31. So technically I'd be stage 1 obese.
32 all day.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, so either
John, let's do this though.
Sorry.
Let's do this. So here's his macros. Let's say he's doing 20% carbs, 40% fat, 40% protein. Let's just play a game and say we buy in. And let's give our man a piece of advice. How would you lay that out if you were to eat, let's say, 4 meals and train in the evening? Would you do you do majority of those carbs around his training time, right? And then keep protein relatively constant throughout the day, and then maybe tinker up fat as the day goes on?
Yeah, I mean, what I historically usually do with athletes is I try to keep the majority of the carbohydrates in the pre and the post workout window, and and then I lower the fat, keep the protein pretty constant, and then the farther away you get from the workout window, I start kind of adding more fat into the diet, and that's just a standard approach. But the bigger question here is the 40% protein. How much how many calories is eating? How many grams of protein? I mean, if he's eating 5,000 calories and he's eating
he's 292 and he's trying to lean out. So you probably bet they have him on what, 11 to 12 calories per pound?
Yeah, I mean, for a 300-pound athlete, I think for me personally, and I can actually pull it up when I went and got my BMR done, I weighed 284 pounds and my BMR was just under 3,500 calories. So, that's kind of pretty. So
this dude's probably they probably have him under 4,000 calories.
Yeah, he's under 4,000 calories. So it's 1,000-calorie meal. 4,000. Let's say, hold on, 4,000. So he's probably eating 400 grams of protein, which is probably a lot. So I would, personally, I would probably I'd probably skin his macros, and I'd probably drop his protein a little bit. I'd probably, just go isocaloric or even play with his fat and play with his deal. But I think the problem is that for this guy, I mean, is he going to have to move more? I mean, when you start talking about somebody that's 30% body fat, I mean, that's pretty significant in the body fat. He might have some hormonal issues and definitely should go see a doctor or see a guy.
So, listen, let's answer his question instead of confusing him.
Okay.
So how would you space it out?
I'd probably have him wake up first thing in the morning, and I would assume he's doing some form of aerobic type work. I'd let him go out on a walk and do it fasted. I'd come home and have him eat, probably some form of protein, and I definitely give him some form of fat. Whether I give him like some eggs, a little bit of meat, and some greens, and then obviously some fat. And then I'd probably do something similar if he ate his first meal at like 7:30 in the morning. I'd probably push him out a little bit, like probably 11:30. Have another meal that would be kind of more protein and fat. And then obviously if he trains later in the night, then that third meal, his pre-workout meal, would probably more protein, more carb, and let him train. And then I'd probably give him a pretty decent protein and carb meal post-workout, assuming he's training at night. I just think it's easier to kind of partition the carbohydrates really around that workout window, just because it makes it more, type of fuel. And, I just don't think you need a ton of carbohydrates away from that meal or away from that workout time. So, and also we've seen some really good effects of people just waking up and doing some, aerobic type work, just fasted, and then eating a protein and fat meal, we've had some great results with that.
Perfect. And now here's the next question. And it is, how many tacos can the Power Athlete crew collectively consume for Cinco de Mayo? So let's say we were to go to sit down right now at Taco Mesa, John, and we had not eaten, we had just ran the hill, maybe chased it with some prowlers, had a light salad dinner the night before, and we go down to do work at Taco Mesa. How many tacos are you putting down?
Well, seeing as I cannot eat anywhere near the amount of tacos Luke can, so whatever Luke has is divided by half, and I'll be a bitch.
All right. I think I could do – Tyler, what are you thinking? Because we crushed that sushi that one time.
That was that was insane. Like, they were looking at us uncomfortable. Like I was expecting them to come try to convince us that they were closing. And he kept like smiling. Like, we had a fan club there.
Yeah.
They couldn't believe they couldn't believe that we were putting away that much sushi.
I think I'm going to say I could do 30 tacos. 3-0.
Oh yeah, easy. I could do 15. I could probably do half of whatever you can do. Dude, Luke, one of Luke and I's first trips, we went to Utah, and there was this man versus food challenge, which was like a 12-egg omelet, a pound of meat, a pound of potato, and like a 40-ounce thing of whole milk, and you got to eat it. What was it, like 30 minutes?
Yeah, it was 15. I did it in 8.
Yes, so 15. We start, and dude, like, Luke absolutely houses this fucking thing, and like, I'm not even like halfway through the potatoes, and I saw how far Luke got. I just tapped out. I'm like, I'll just pay.
Yeah, and that was early in my career with CrossFit football, where I still kind of sipped on coffee. But then, like, as you travel with John, you learn how to chug piping hot coffee, and it really you get this immunity to heat in your mouth. And remember that breakfast was so fucking hot.
Yeah.
That's how they got you. They brought it out on like this fucking red hot skillet, so you couldn't eat the food, like, fast enough. And I didn't fucking fall for it. I just did it anyways and just burned my mouth to win.
Dude,
so you got 15. I've got 30. Leia K, chime in. How many tacos do you think you're going to eat just sitting? And they're probably like 2 to 3 ounces of meat.
Is it like let's say, compare it to the fish tacos from the symposium?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think I had 6 of those at the symposium lunch when Rob Wolf accused you of trying to poison him with gluten.
Shoot, you figured it out.
Gluten bombing Rob Wolf should be actually a sport or like a reality show. It'd be like, we've secretly replaced Rob's normal, meal with something that was laced in gluten. Let's see what happens. And then the look on Rob's face when he gets gluten dosed, and then all of a sudden he's reaching into his pocket for the hazmat sign to put on the bathroom door is pretty epic.
I don't know. I think if I'm hungry, I could probably get maybe 12.
All right.
I have a big appetite. I'm not a small person, so.
No, I'm not. I'm fine with that. So that puts us at 57. All right. Well, let's move on to something that's more helpful to people, supposedly. All right. John, I think I think we could all probably contribute on this one. We got, what is the best way to eat like a Viking when you cook for yourself and you're in an apartment that doesn't allow a grill on the patio? So this guy doesn't have a grill. I'm assuming there's probably like a smaller oven, and what there definitely needs to be, and I'm just going to go ahead and like bait everybody, at least one crock pot.
Yeah, I mean I lived in an apartment building in Kansas City that did not allow. I mean, we had a balcony, and like I bought a barbecue. I'm out there fucking barbecuing, and then all of a sudden, like 10 minutes after I like finish and clean up, there's like a letter slides underneath my doorway, and I like open. I go out there and look. I don't see anybody, and it was like from the management council that you are not allowed to barbecue on the patio, and I was like, fuck me. So I had to figure out new ways to cook things, and I ended up with a crock pot and a pressure cooker. And what's cool about the crock pot is you can throw stuff in it and wake up in the morning and it's done. The pressure cooker works just like the crock pot, but in a really short amount of time. So I would come home and throw stuff in the pressure cooker, cook it up, and then I could have my meal if I didn't get something or I needed something done quick. And those two were ideal. I think everybody should have a pressure or should have a crock pot at the very least. The other thing, which I didn't know about then, which I would gladly have today, would be a sous vide. That sous vide thing, I mean, we've been cooking with it. It's pretty amazing. And John Herbal sent me that as a Christmas present. So we've been using that a lot. So believe me, as much as I love the barbecue, I think, on a big green egg, I think having other things in the kitchen like a pressure cooker and a crock pot and a sous vide are just as important.
I had a grill pan when I lived in an apartment, and it wasn't that bad. A grill pan, and then I had a bunch of friends that had those little George Foreman or whatever, if you just kind of wanted that grill line look. I mean, it doesn't taste like it's barbecued, but
there's probably nothing worse on this planet that's edible than a George Foreman grilled piece of frozen chicken. I mean, that is like the darkest day of my life.
In college, I would throw the frozen chicken breast on the Foreman. I wouldn't even defrost them.
Yeah, that's what I did. I didn't know you had to.
Yeah, well, you don't, because I ate that, and that's why I hate chicken more than anything else in my life.
But a George Foreman grilled burger patty isn't the worst.
Yeah, that's not that bad. Put some fucking seasonings on it. Quit being a bitch and put a plain chicken breast on it.
So hey, John, do you think let's track down a George Foreman grill, like one of those big ones, and let's just make one huge George Foreman-sized meat patty?
Sounds horrendous.
That sounds delicious. There you go. Eat like a Viking. That's what I would do.
Cool.
But no, that's a solid one. Good question. All right, let's go over here. Let's jump down to what ingredients should you try to stay away from when shopping for supplements? So that's a little two-parter. So what do you guys think on that one?
Yeah. So with that, it's really with the keep it simple, stupid. All this stuff have like a concocted proprietary blend, all that. It's garbage. In my opinion, if you want creatine, just the 100% creatine monohydrate, still the best. If you want to add something to help you sleep, you can get some things like that. If it's your circadian rhythm, we can get some melatonin. I'm a big fan of the sleep cocktail, with Rob Wolf and Dr. Kirk Parsley. Any of this pre-workout stuff, it's just a bunch of stuff put together, X amount of this, X amount of that, proprietary blend, all of that. That's just a big warning for me not to take any of that junk. So I keep it really simple. You should have whey protein, carbohydrate powder, maybe BCAAs, maybe creatine, maybe. I pretty much think everybody should take creatine, but some just don't want to. But in the grand scheme of things, like the more tricky it gets with supplement ingredients, just the less you need it, in my opinion.
Ladies, you got anything to add?
I don't take a lot of supplements. I take supplements, not like pre-workout extra. I take creatine. But the stuff that I get, I always go for the medical brand supplements, like any kind of vitamin or anything. I get the kind like that you have to get from like a chiro or a doctor or something, because the stuff that they have in the, nutrition depots or whatever, like you don't know what's in that stuff. It's not regulated. You could be taking anything. You could be taking fucking chalk.
So what would you say to someone who says, "Oh, but that stuff's too expensive"? I mean, I know this is kind of a softball, so.
Well, I mean, you don't need a lot. You really just stick with the basics and work on your food choices then. If you don't want to put them, I mean, a supplement is a supplement. It's not, hence the name, it's extra. It's not something that you maybe necessarily have to reach optimal health. Yeah, sure, it's great. If you can get it, then you get it. But if you just stick with the basics and focus more on your food choices, then, you know, you can get a lot of the extra stuff. Spend some money on a good quality like whey protein and some creatine, and you'll be pretty good to go from there.
Solid. And I guess the other thing is, if you're just like, oh, I'm saving $20 on my protein, but like you said, Leia, you're taking Hershey syrup and like sidewalk chalk mashed up and mixed up, and it tastes good. You're not getting fucking protein. Like, you don't know what you're taking. So you're not saving any money. You're throwing away the money you think you're saving.
The supplement industry it's kind of scary whenever you really look into it at what is in those various like protein, like Tyler was saying, proprietary blends and stuff. You don't know, you know, and half the time you're getting upsold on the marketing anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah.
So I guess John, would you agree that, you know, what we used to promote at least is like the people who are going through the trouble to find grass-fed or to put together a grass-fed whey product are typically wed to, you know, like the SFH people are wed to quality and aren't going to put fillers in, aren't going to blindside you with a fucking, you know, bullshit like that. And I know, like, when we had Well Food up and running, we knew that was quality protein. We didn't have to fucking worry about it. But I guess when I hear somebody ask about supplements, they're probably asking about, like, the big ones that people take, a multivitamin, a fucking pre-workout, a whey shake.
I always go back to Doc Bueller, you know, talking about when he worked with the Jazz that, you know, they signed a supplement deal, and next thing you know, this company was providing supplements to all the players. And then he was in there testing the guys, and they were having big problems. So he ended up having an independent lab check the supplements, and they were full of a bunch of crap he didn't want these guys taking. So for me, I'm very fortunate in that I have people like Tom Incledon and different people that do, quality testing on things and only promote the best. And so if I ever have a question about, hey, what about this? What about this? I mean, Tom was like, hey, no, this one's real good. We've tested this one. And actually at the point now where I'm just like, hey, Tom, I will only source my stuff from you because I know you're going to send me exactly, or at least recommend, hey, take it from this. Like if there's a probiotic or anything, I reach out to either a Tom or a Rob Wolf for different people. I mean, I take Doc Carson's Sleep Cocktail, and I really just try to buy stuff from reputable brands and, have, everything good. I mean, I've, tested things. Like I take alpha lipoic acid before meals. And, and I know it's pretty interesting. I mean, alpha lipoic acid controls blood sugar, and a good test for the alpha lipoic acid is to take it and not eat and then see how you feel. And, I've taken, I tried to take like, you're supposed to take like, 300, like one pill. I've taken like 12 and, 1,200, 1,500, 2,000 milligrams of the alpha lipoic acid and not felt anything when I didn't eat. And then I take some of like the stuff that Tom sent me. I take like one or two of his pills and instantly like I'm starting to feel like a crash a little bit. So, the problem is I think with a lot of supplements is people really don't feel a difference one way or the other. Like it's very hard to feel like small little changes within the body. I mean, that's why we like to get blood work and sleep and performance training on this so you can have a matrix for test things. But, how many people are like, man, when I was taking this one supplement, all of a sudden, my performance was through the roof. I mean, it's kind of an arbitrary thing. And I think it's kind of a shotgun approach. People, just randomly take stuff because somebody does, hey, well, I took it and I felt better. Well, little do you know that they were deficient in something. So how does it help? So I know for me personally, I get my blood work done. I see where I'm micronutrient deficient, and then I sit down with Tom and go through it. And I need to take this, this, and this, and then I take that, and then we have a retest 6 months later. And was there improvement? Was there a change? Because I mean, sometimes there's no change. And at that point, you either have to look at something else, up the dose, or continue to do it. So the supplement game is extremely murky, and without, having some understanding of, what you need and what you don't need, I think you're just shooting in the dark. It's kind of like, when fish oil kind of got hot, everybody was on the Robb fish oil calculator taking 30 grams a day. And like, fuck, that was way too much. But, that's the idea of like, well, if one's good, 100's better. So, I don't know. I'm kind of up in the air a little bit on the supplements. When we had Well Food Co., I knew exactly what was in that. It was to me, it was the best, whey protein I could source for the company. Now I'm, kind of skeptical on a lot of stuff, and, really don't even take whey protein anymore. So, I mean, if I find a good one, I'll get back on it. And it's all about experimenting, and more importantly, finding what you like. And for me at this stage of my life, quality is the most important. And unfortunately, people don't care. They'll buy whatever they can because it's $1 cheaper, not realizing that it could be complete bullshit because there's no supplement regulation. So I think if cost is your only concern when looking at supplements, you shouldn't take them.
Fair enough. All right. So here we go. Another leaning out and maintaining performance question. I'm just going to go ahead and read it. When trying to lean out and maintain performance, do you restrict calories through decreased fat intake or decreased carb intake? Also, how much protein does an athlete really need, and how much is going to waste? School of thought being 1 gram per pound of body weight and only being able to process 30 grams of protein at any given time.
Okay. So the thing is here, like it depends on your carbs and fat. Like what are you doing? Like, we talk about earning your carbs. Did you just do something where you earned your carbs? Leaning out or what? It doesn't matter. You need to eat carbs there. Not doing so much, we might fill those gaps with fat. As far as the 30 grams of protein here and there, I hate that one. That's like saying, I can only absorb 30 pounds. John's daughters can only absorb 30 pounds, and Brock Lesnar, or 30 grams, and Brock Lesnar can only absorb 30 grams. It's stupid. Like it's saying that we can all, no matter what your body type is, no matter how much you're doing, no matter, what you're doing every day, like you can only absorb 30 grams at a time. That's silly. Everybody's body's different. And, John said it, I've seen it. And the thing is, like I have never had someone come to me with poor performance and bad body composition due to the fact they were eating too much protein. But almost always, if someone is underperforming or they don't like their body composition, I would even feel confident saying always it's because they weren't eating enough protein. So there's this big fear of eating too much protein, but it just, like I feel like you have to actively do it, like trying to be silly and stuff to maybe you're 150 pounds and trying to follow the Rock's diet or something, but it just doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, I've never bought into this 30 grams of protein. I think that's fucking horse shit. I would kind of avoid that one. And where that whole deal got started was the Zone and Dr. Barry Sears, which, we've since beat up on that enough to really show that there's no validity in anything he says. The other problem too is I'm not a fan of yanking fat out of the diet. It's really easy to do because fat is, twice as calorically dense as protein and both carb. So, if you're looking to really keep the food volume very similar, it's easy to reduce calories by yanking out fat. And so that's what people do. And that's a pretty standard approach. People start with fairly balanced approach. And then as you start dieting down, what they do is they periodically yank out 500 calories, and they usually leave the carbs and the protein constant and hit the fat. For me personally, I don't really like to yank fat out of the diet. So if I'm going to yank calories, I'll tend to yank out carbs and fat and try to leave protein more constant. But that's really based on individual athletes. And I think for certain athletes, they process carbohydrates better than others. So for like a guy like Luke, I would probably end up, pulling more fat than carb. And for myself, I tend to pull carbs and leave the fat, but that's just based on, that I do really well with lesser carbs, and Luke, on the other hand, does really crappy on a lower carb diet. But we also got, fitness genes and got some genetic testing that confirms that. But, going into that, we already knew it. And then also we get the fitness genes done and we're like, oh yeah, well, I process carbs very well, so I might not need as many, whereas Luke is more inefficient where he can handle a little bit more. So I think what it comes down to is there's no really one size fits all approach. And, asking questions like this without us ever training or knowing anything about you as an individual is just really a shot in the fucking dark. So, I mean, these questions are, great.
Well,
but
and then another thing, I think the biggest caveat even behind that, John, and something that I think I don't know, my personal experience, trying to lean out and maintain performance is like, what is the performance? Like, are you trying to just be a good CrossFitter, or is your livelihood on your ability to perform on the field like yours was? Like, why the fuck would you even want to lean out if performance is the all ending, you know what I mean? So it's like,
Sure.
To me, if I were to talk to like a general pop person who's not getting paid to perform, I would say your performance is likely going to suffer if you want to get quicker gains trying to lean out, or you can maintain performance and it's going to be a much flatter leaning out curve. You know what I mean? Like those two, I don't think go hand in hand. And unless, John, and you guys tell me, because I'm not you guys are smarter than I am, unless you go through the testing, you get your blood work, you make sure your adrenals are in order, you determine your carb sensitivity, your BMR, like all that stuff, then I think you could start to tinker. But that's where it becomes a lot of moving pieces and expensive to figure that shit out.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So I guess best way to do it, you're shooting in the dark until you figure out what works for you. Sorry. That's kind of what we all came down to, right?
Yep.
All right. I mean, I'm just afraid of some of these questions, to be honest with you. John, I'm going to let you go on, get going on this one. And Leia, did you have anything to jump on with any of those?
With the leaning and performance
kind
of thing. Well, I honestly think, like you said, there's only a couple of performance aspects that I could think of where being lighter would be beneficial for performance, especially as it relates to say CrossFit, for example. Yeah, sure. Maybe your gymnastics skills would improve a little bit, thus your performance would improve, but then you're going to suffer as far as strength and stuff is concerned. It really is an experiment for everybody. And for the most part, you're going, if you're really actively trying to seek leaning, your performance is going to suffer. And if that's okay with you, cool. But if you have to keep yourself in peak performance, then maybe this is either the wrong season or time for leaning. And you should put it on the back burner until maybe an off season or something like that. Or maybe you should just decide that it's really not worth it being as, leaner and just fucking try and destroy people in your sport. That's what I think that people have a hard time with that anyway. And I can't say that I don't either. Obviously being female, I think, and in, there's a certain aspect of being lean that's definitely appealing, or being leaner. But in the end, you just got to realize that what you do performance wise, more people care about. It's more important, or it should be more important than what you look like. So.
Yeah. Fuck the bullshit images of vanity and what Instagram models are making you think is real. And don't get started, John. You're not allowed to talk on that one. All right, John, this one's for you, buddy. I think you have an idea of what this is going to cost. How much money do you all budget per meal per day?
Oh, geez.
$5, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, it's $1.25 happy. Remember from the toll booth Willie?
Yeah.
I don't think so. For me, it's a family of four. So, I periodically buy meat and big deals. So I don't think I could personally break my meals down into per deal. I just don't know. I mean, we don't really cook like that. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I guess I was getting to, John, is what you theoretically, didn't you just write a blog post for a guy who's going to spend $5 a fucking day?
I did, but unfortunately, there's no way that I could feed my family on $5 a day. So, I mean, what do I personally spend? I couldn't tell you. I
guess I kind of have an idea. So I try to I'll go to the market every day after work. I don't know. I just like it. I like see my Sprouts girls, my Sprouts guys. I say what's up, see what's going on with the family. And I'm typically for dinner for me and Packy, like $20 to $30. And that makes it up for the evening and to supplement breakfast in the morning with whatever's left over. And then probably, what does breakfast cost for oatmeal or sweet potato or, rice and then some eggs? I mean, maybe $8 for that meal. Maybe. That's stretching it. And then lunch is probably another $8. And then snack or whatever that fourth meal might be or come up, there's got to be $5. So what does that come out to?
I don't know. I mean, I think it really goes back to how much, how much you feel comfortable spending. Mm-hmm. For me personally, I rather spend a bigger portion of my available income on food than on other things like, I don't really buy. Well, actually, I had to buy some jeans recently, but I don't really
clothes, shoes.
Yeah, I don't really waste money on clothes. I mean, what do we drive 3 miles each way on? To work on our commutes. We don't waste a lot of gas money. I mean, for the majority of stuff, like for us, I mean, and I'll tell you what's pretty interesting is since we had the baby, we don't really go out to dinner because, little man's got to eat every 3 hours. So we've been staying at home and really doing everything. And it's pretty amazing, not going out to dinner, how much, that adds to your, available budget.
Oh, yeah, dude. I know Ashley and I just did dinner and a movie with the clinic and his wife and Benny Cakes, and it was $200 for dinner and a movie.
For you? For all of y'all?
Just for me and Ashley.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. But I guess that's Newport Beach for you.
Yeah, your movie is more expensive than my movie.
We'll say, was that like 3D with reclining
chairs? Yeah. Honestly, where we live in the country is the most expensive place I've ever been. We did, I remember a couple of years ago, before we had kids, we did a seminar in the Midwest, and I remember my wife went to Whole Foods and got some lunch, or I forgot what it was, and then that next weekend we were out here in California, and she went and got the exact same thing at a Whole Foods, and the cost was I think we figured out it was 60% higher out here than it was back in the Midwest. I mean, just everything, the cost of living out here is so insane. I mean, I took my daughter to a matinee and I think it was still $20. It's just for some reason, everything out here is so much more expensive. When we visited and hung out in Texas for a week, my wife was how much was dinner? And I'm like, oh, it was $30. And she's like, a person? I'm like, no, for all of us. She's like, wow. She's like, when was the last time we went out to dinner and it was $30? I'm like, you probably weren't with me because I was by myself. It's just where we live in California. I mean, just everything, whether it be car insurance. I mean, I remember I paid, I had 3 cars, which is ridiculous when I lived in Kansas City. And my tags and my insurance on those 3 cars was not nearly as much as my insurance is on my 1 car out here. So it's very expensive to live out here. So.
Leia, any add on?
I mean, I know that my husband and I spend the majority of our money on our housing and then on food. We spend a lot of money on food. I mean,
that's kind of a European thing. I know, when I saw some stuff, Americans spend the least amount of available income on food than any other country in the world, and I think it's because there was I think I showed it to Luke, but there was a pretty interesting, and I think I watched it on YouTube, but there was a pretty interesting thing about these people. They were I can't remember where they were. I think they were somewhere in Texas or somewhere, but they were talking about how they couldn't afford to eat healthy. And they go through this whole deal about, all they can afford is to eat at fast food. They kind of go through it and they show them going through the fast food. They're getting the Cokes, they're going through it. And then they get in and they were like, you guys work your ass off. Like, why is it so hard? Like, what's your housing? And they were like, well, we don't have, insurance. So my husband's diabetes medication's over $500 a month. So we have the option of either eating unhealthy and buying medicine to make him healthy, or we could eat healthy, but then he won't get his medicine. And I remember he's type 2 diabetic. I'm like, fuck, talk about a perpetuating deal. So I just always thought that, you either are going to spend now or spend later.
Yeah, you pay in the front end or the back end.
Yeah, 100%. So what do you got?
What's going to be best here? How about this guy? This will be our last one because I know we're running short on time. A couple went unanswered, but that's all right. Following Jack Street and train in the evenings, what's the best post-workout meal? That's a pretty broad question, but I'm just going to keep going with it. If I'm eating with my family roughly 90 minutes after training, do I need a post-workout meal? Should he even consider one? He's been told that at the age 35, stay away from too many supplements to rely on food instead. That means, so he's basically doesn't want to have a post-workout shake, right? But wants to make those post-workout shake calories up in the meal 90 minutes later. Or should he pack some food for after the gym, even though he's eating dinner 90 minutes later?
I like a better, so we were talking about age-old debates, few amount of meals versus a lot amount of meals. A big one too is post-nutrient timing in that post-workout window. I've heard everything from 30 minutes inside of an hour is usually the gold standard. For me, I think, as soon as I get done, I can eat. If that's, 20, 30 minutes later, I think that's fine. If you pushed out to 60 or 90 minutes, I think at the end of the day, is it really that big a factor? Is all of a sudden there's going to be some anabolic window that's going to fucking slam shut on you and lock, and then any nutrient that you're going to consume is instantly going to go to your fucking ass? I don't really buy it, just look, but the idea goes, look at the rate of absorption. You chew your food. How long does it actually take to be able to get into the system? In a perfect world, what I would probably have my athlete do is immediately following their workout, I'd probably have them consume a shake of some carb and protein.
But let's say you don't want to eat the shake. I think that's kind of what he's getting at is what about, what could he use for a meal? Because he said later on, he's trying to stay away from supplements and rely on real food instead.
Then I would look for a meal that actually matches the balance of what you were going to do in the shake. If you were going to do a shake that had, 40 grams of carbohydrate, 40 grams of protein, I'd probably look and say, all right, I need to get 40 grams of protein, which would probably be right around, 5 ounces of chicken or beef or whatever it is. I'd probably stick to a chicken to probably keep it pretty lean. And then I'd probably try to get, some 40 grams of carbohydrates, which I think would probably be, right around 3, maybe 3.5 rice cakes. So, which sounds terrible, chicken and rice cakes, which sounds disgusting.
Dude, I used to eat.
That would be like a cup of egg whites.
Yeah.
Egg whites, half a cup of oats, and a banana.
Yeah, something like that. I'd probably throw an apple or I'd throw something in quick and then eat that as immediately as I got done and then eat a meal 90 minutes later. I don't think that's uncalled for. Most recommendations you see normally recommend some form of post-workout shake, and the reason that you usually tend to do a shake is because absorption's a lot faster than chewing your food. So, usually take some form of carb and protein post-workout, and then eat a meal 90 minutes later is usually recommended. I know that was, when we talked to John Meadows, that was a real big deal for him was, he was big into intra-workout, nutrient deal. And then he was like, well, if you're consuming nutrients during the workout, then it really doesn't make sense to have a post-workout meal or a post-workout shake. So then eat a meal 90 minutes later. So it's really all, you want to have to skin it. For me personally, because we work out early in the morning, I don't like to eat before the workout. And then, I don't mind having some form of intra-workout nutrition during that. But I know if I'm going to do that, then I'm going to push my meal out a little bit farther after.
I know back in the day I used to do this, and I used to mix sweet potato coconut milk and like crock pot shredded chicken just in one little fucking Tupperware, and I used to just crush that. Those were my real weird days when I was like really into the CrossFit, and anything Rob Wolf said I did. So
was that when you were trying to get that guy to paint that picture of you on a steed or something?
No, and first off, that's my boy Doug, and I was trying to get him to take a photo shoot of me on a white stallion. And I told you that in confidence.
That's a whole other podcast.
But
so where's this at? Where's this painting?
That's a thing. I'll show you these pictures later, Tyler. But I do want to go one last question I forgot to ask. Someone asks, are the meal plans worth it?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, they're 100% worth it if you are able to follow directions and meal prep and do what the coach is asking you to do. If you can do that, you will. They're very worth it. They're excellent. Now, if you're the type of person that's going to pay for it, get the information, and then not do anything with it, or more importantly, not fucking follow it at all, and then complain that you didn't meet your, the effects and you didn't see the results, then I think that's problematic. But for most people, and I would say 99% of the people, it removes a lot of the questions and a lot of the stress associated with planning the meals. Hey, this is where your workout is. This is how I'm timing it. This is what I want you to eat and everything. And you let kind of, Jesus take the wheel a little bit and just hand that over. And, that's nice because then you don't have to fucking stress about it.
Yeah. And I mean, these guys give you a written plan. They check in every week. You tell them what's up. You think you had an idea. They tell you, they give you a better approach. Like, I don't know. If that's what's keeping you from achieving your goals, then obviously it's worth it. I don't know. And if you want to see what a sample looks like, go to powerathlete.com, powerAthleteHQ.com/nutrition, and work your way into the meal plan section, and it'll give you a sample. You'll see exactly what you get.
I just, the meal plans give people direction. I think a lot of people just have a really good idea of what they should be doing, but they don't quite know how to execute it. So the meal plan just really gives you like a no bullshit, straightforward, here, do this. And I think that's just what a lot of people are looking for. So I think they can be really helpful if you're going to, like you said, if you're good at executing, if you're going to meal prep and you're going to listen to what we tell you, then it's, you can't really get any better than that.
All right, kids. Good show. All about nutrition. I mean, nutrition's blowing up, man. Everybody wants to be in on nutrition. It's like a party in the Facebook group. I mean, doesn't get any better than that. But all right, John. Hey, buddy, don't worry. I'll be back next week. You won't have to just spend time with the clinic. It'll be like me and you, like good old times, DeVito and Schwarzenegger.
You know what? I gave him one fucking task today, was to literally like, hey, I'm going to, like, we were doing like like some belt squat work. And I was like, yo, man, I just want you to get a video of me marching. We'll drop this fucking IG thing. And like, he couldn't even fucking make it happen. I'm like, Nate, he's out. I don't know. If he's listening to this, Nate, you need to either bring some coffee or show up with donuts or something. You're out. I'm telling you. I think I'm going to send him a text like, Nate, I asked you to do one thing and you're out. He needs to really do something to bring himself back in good graces, Luke.
All right, I'll send over a memo to him. That's what he's all about, official memorandum correspondence via email now, since he's like a guy that has a fucking job. But Tyler, Leia, have a good day. Thanks for hopping on. We'll do this. We should do this every few weeks. Just get a solid nutrition episode.
Yeah.
That works.
Absolutely.
Cool.
All right, guys. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Now it's time for you to empower your performance. Does all of this nutrition talk have you confused? Shh. Ease that big, beautiful brain of yours and let us do the work. We have everything you need to meet your gaining, leaning, or maintaining goals. Head over to powerathletehq.com/nutrition for more information on how to fuel the fire that is your performance. Until next time, bye!